Like and subscribe might be a simple click for you, but it will lead to a transformational change of our channel. Support us to achieve 5 million subscribers by year 2028. Near a massive waterfall, a humanoid alien observes a starship departing from the planet before collecting a vessel containing a black liquid, which it proceeds to consume. Instantly, the liquid starts to overtake its body, turning its skin black and breaking down its DNA, causing the alien to collapse into the water. Its body begins to disintegrate, leaving its DNA to be carried away by the current. In 2089, a group of archaeologists led by Dr. Elizabeth and Dr. Charlie discover cave paintings in Scotland that are at least 35,000 years old. These paintings match a series of others found worldwide, from cultures that couldn't have shared information. 2 years later, the starship Prometheus departs from Earth. The entire crew is in cryosleep, and David, a robot, is responsible for overseeing everything. During his free time, he learns more about humanity by engaging in activities like playing sports, watching films, dyeing his hair, and studying ancient languages. He also enjoys observing the crew's dreams. For instance, Elizabeth dreams of her childhood when she watched an African tribe conduct a burial, prompting her father to explain how different cultures have unique beliefs about death. After 2 years of travel, the ship reaches its destination, and David awakens the entire crew, which includes both mercenaries and scientists. Everyone takes some time to recover from the effects of cryosleep and to eat, while Captain Yannick sets up a Christmas tree, despite having missed the holiday. Meredith, who oversees the crew's adherence to their tasks, finds this foolish. Soon, the mission briefing begins, with Meredith playing a holographic message from Peter, the CEO of Wayland Corporation, the entity funding the expedition. He explains that by the time they view this, he will have passed away, and David is the closest thing to a son he will never have. Peter has always been curious about humanity's origins and what happens after death, prompting him to support this expedition based on a theory presented by Elizabeth and Charlie. The doctors take the stage and explain that the paintings they found worldwide depict a star map leading to a planet with its own sun capable of supporting life, which is where they are now. Elizabeth refers to the aliens who created the map as engineers, as she believes they created humanity, though the rest of the crew remains skeptical. Shortly afterward, Meredith summons the doctors to her private quarters, equipped with a medical pod and self-contained life support. She expresses her doubt about the significance of the cave drawings and explains that she is participating in this mission for Peter, thus feeling responsible for ensuring the funds are not wasted. If the doctors discover life, they are forbidden from making contact, leaving them to question the purpose of their journey. David, having spent the last 2 years deciphering numerous ancient languages, is confident he can communicate with the engineers, but when he sends a message to the planet, there is no response. The crew decides it's time to land, and the ship descends through the atmosphere, detecting no radio signals or heat sources, indicating there is likely no civilization below. However, Charlie spots some straight lines on the ground that couldn't have formed naturally, so the ship lands in that area. The team prepares for the expedition, with David donning a suit even though he doesn't need it, as he was designed to blend in with humans. They use a series of vehicles to reach a dome-like structure that geologist Fifield cannot determine if it is natural, but he is sure it is hollow. Once inside, Fifield deploys 2 specialized probes to map the entire area, enabling them to navigate through a series of corridors. As they venture deeper, they find a source of water heated by sunlight, with CO2 levels that are breathable, unlike the toxic atmosphere outside. Charlie hypothesizes that these aliens had been terraforming and decides to remove his helmet, confirming it is safe. Subsequently, everyone else removes their helmets and continues exploring. David discovers a wall with strange goo and various symbols, which he activates using his knowledge of languages. This triggers a hologram of running figures that the crew follows until they find the body of an alien next to a door that killed it. Sensing danger, Fifield and biologist Milburn decide to return to the ship, feeling their expertise is no longer required. While the doctors examine the body, David opens the door, revealing the alien's well-preserved head on the other side. The rest of the crew finds more bodies, indicating the species is extinct. The room also contains worms, suggesting life is possible, as well as a monolithic statue of a humanoid head, murals on the ceiling, and numerous stone cylinders. David notices the cylinders are sweating, and one begins to emit a black organic substance. Elizabeth, distracted by the changing murals, believes they have altered the atmosphere in the room and insists they leave. She and Charlie bag the alien head while David secretly takes one of the cylinders, concluding the cave is a tomb. At that moment, Yannick detects a dangerous storm approaching and alerts the doctors. Meredith gives them 15 minutes to return before she seals the ramp. The crew rushes out of the cave and drives back to the ship just in time. However, the alien head falls from the vehicle, and Elizabeth goes back to retrieve it, getting caught in the storm. Charlie attempts to rescue her but gets stuck as well. Ultimately, David pulls them both back to safety with a set of wires. Afterward, the crew begins the process of decontaminating their bodies and the hangar, only to realize Milburn and Fifield have not returned. The two scientists are lost inside the cave. Yannick contacts them to explain that due to the storm, they cannot be picked up and will have to wait until morning. Meanwhile, the team sterilizes the alien head. A quick scan reveals it is not an exoskeleton but a helmet. When they open it, they discover a humanoid alien head inside with new cells forming on its forehead. They decide to run a stem line into its brain to simulate life. The trick works, and the face starts to move, but the overstimulation causes it to explode. Elizabeth examines a sample from the head and is thrilled to find its DNA matches human DNA, confirming her theory that these beings created the human race. David then updates a cryosleep pod containing a mysterious person. Only Meredith is aware of this, and she aggressively demands to know what the person said. David cryptically replies that they were told to try harder. David then privately inspects the cylinder he brought back, finding numerous capsules filled with black liquid. Inspired, he visits Charlie to share a drink and discuss how far they would go for answers. Afterward, Charlie joins Elizabeth in her room, and she shares the DNA revelation. They celebrate by becoming intimate. In the cave, Milburn and Fifield are examining a creepy pile of alien bodies when Yannick contacts them, warning that the scanner detected a life form nearby. They become anxious, but the signal quickly disappears, which Yannick attributes to a glitch. Eventually, Milburn and Fifield reach the room with the monolith and find black liquid seeping from the cylinders. To their astonishment, they see a reptilian alien swimming in the liquid. When Milburn approaches, the creature attaches to his arm, attempting to break it. Fifield cuts the creature off, only to have its corrosive fluid spray onto his helmet, melting through the plastic and reaching his face. While Fifield writhes in pain, the creature enters Milburn's suit and kills him. The next morning, Charlie wakes up feeling unwell and notices something strange in his eyes. Yannick informs everyone that the storm has passed, but he cannot contact the scientists, so they prepare to search for them. His team couldn't find the glitch in the scanner, and David promises to locate and fix the probe. However, as the group explores the cave, David intentionally takes a different path, sending a recording of his discoveries to Meredith. David finds another chamber filled with thousands of cylinders and alien armor. He then enters a corridor leading to a room with several cryosleep capsules. Before he can activate a machine in the center of the room, Meredith contacts him. The machine displays holograms of the engineers examining a star map that includes Earth. When the holographic show ends, David notices one of the cryosleep capsules is glowing, indicating a live engineer inside. Meanwhile, Charlie starts stumbling during their search, and Elizabeth realizes he's unwell, but he insists on continuing. They find Milburn's body, and as they inspect it, a small reptilian alien jumps out and slithers away. However, Fifield is still missing. At that moment, Charlie becomes very ill, prompting Elizabeth to order everyone back to quarantine him. By the time they return to the ship, Charlie's skin is turning black. Meredith meets them at the hangar with a flamethrower, refusing to allow Charlie on board. Despite Yannick and Elizabeth's protests, Charlie, believing his situation is hopeless, approaches Meredith and forces her to incinerate him, leaving Elizabeth devastated. The crew is then quarantined, and David runs tests on Elizabeth to check for infection. Surprisingly, the scan reveals she is 3 months pregnant, which is impossible since she was in cryosleep 3 months ago. The fetus has a bizarre shape, and Elizabeth wants it removed, but David says they lack the necessary equipment and personnel for the procedure. Suddenly, Elizabeth experiences severe abdominal pain, and David administers a sedative to make her sleep. Elizabeth Shaw, after becoming impregnated with an alien fetus, resists the crew's attempt to place her in cryosleep. She fights them off and rushes to Meredith Vickers' medical pod. When she requests a cesarean, the pod, calibrated only for males, cannot comply directly. Desperate, she requests the extraction of a foreign body. The machine, with insufficient anesthetics, painfully extracts the fetus, which bursts open to reveal a thrashing alien creature. Elizabeth endures the attack while the machine stitches her wound, and she locks the alien in the pod, where it is subdued by the anesthetics. Meanwhile, Captain Yannick notices something unusual outside the ship, and a crew member goes to investigate, discovering a mutated Fifield. He attacks everyone in the hangar, leading to a fierce battle. Since bullets are ineffective, they resort to using a flamethrower to kill him. Elizabeth, now wandering the ship, reaches the infirmary to request medicine and is shocked to find Peter Wayland alive. He had been secretly communicating with the android David and was in an extra cryosleep pod intended for him. Peter, determined to meet the engineers and seek answers, prepares to visit the engineer discovered in the cave. Despite Elizabeth's warnings about the planet's dangers, Peter dismisses her concerns. Determined to uncover the truth, Elizabeth pushes through her pain and gears up to return to the cave. Yannick shares his theory that the planet is not the engineers' home but a military installation where they created the black liquid as a weapon of mass destruction. This liquid leaked and killed them. Yannick suggests returning to Earth, but Elizabeth convinces him to wait until she contacts the remaining living engineer. As Peter prepares to leave, Meredith Vickers tries to dissuade him, calling him father, but he ignores her. Upon reaching the cave, David instructs everyone to remove their helmets, revealing he knows the disease isn't airborne. He implies he contaminated Charlie's drink with the black liquid. The crew enters a chamber filled with thousands of cylinders, which David identifies as a cargo hold. From this new perspective, Yannick and Meredith realize the structure is a starship. David activates a machine and explains that the engineers were preparing to leave for Earth when they lost control of the black liquid, which killed them. They awaken the last engineer, and Elizabeth tries to ask questions, but Peter has one of his mercenaries silence her before posing his own philosophical queries. David translates into Proto-Indo-European, but the engineer responds violently, using David's head to kill Peter. He then pushes Elizabeth aside and kills the mercenaries. Back on the ship, Meredith sees Peter's death through David's eyes and orders Yannick to prepare for departure. Elizabeth escapes as the engineer activates his ship to head to Earth. She calls Yannick, urging him to stop the engineer or the black liquid will destroy humanity. Prometheus isn't equipped for battle, but Yannick commands his pilots to warm up the ion propulsion, turning the ship into a projectile. Meredith runs out of the ship, and Yannick gives his pilots permission to do the same, but they choose to stay with their captain. Both ships collide mid-air, preventing the engineer from leaving. The wrecked ships plummet to the ground, and Elizabeth and Meredith flee to avoid being crushed. Meredith isn't fast enough and perishes, but Elizabeth survives by finding shelter next to a rock. Elizabeth returns to Prometheus to gather supplies and hears noises from deeper within the ship. Armed with an axe, she investigates and finds her alien offspring, now massive, has escaped the medical pod. David contacts her, urging her to run, but it's too late. The engineer appears and pins Elizabeth against the wall, intending to kill her. Thinking quickly, Elizabeth opens the door behind her, releasing the alien offspring. It attacks the engineer, subduing him by thrusting an ovipositor down his throat. Elizabeth breaks down outside the ship but is contacted by David, who explains there are more engineer ships underground and he can pilot one. Elizabeth rescues David's head and body and asks him to take her to the engineer's home planet instead of returning to Earth. David agrees, though he doesn't understand her need for answers. Before they leave, Elizabeth sends a message to Earth from Prometheus, explaining what happened. Moments later, a black alien emerges from the dead engineer, setting the stage for future events in the Alien series. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification button so that you don't miss any of our video updates.